In this section, we're going to be talking about intermediate Python programming concepts with AI guidance. Mainly, we're going to be discussing data structures and functions. We'll start with data structures, so we'll talk about lists and tuples and dictionaries and sets and things of that nature. And then we'll look at functions, basically how a function looks like, how it's constructed, and obviously we'll be integrating AI with all of these details. So the first thing we want to do is just have like a brief overview of understanding data structures and functions. So essentially, if you've never heard of what a function is a very popular idea in computer programming. But a function is basically like a block or a structure of code, and it's an organized, reusable set of code. Specifically in Python, it's established using the def command, you can say. So you can say def, and then you could give the function a name, and then you can have arguments to your function that you can call whenever, or you can send through your function whenever you want to call that specific function throughout your code. So we'll talk more about functions a little bit later, but you can basically see on the bottom there's an example of a function. So you have definition here of greet. So greet is the function name, and then in there you have an argument for the name. Then you have basically things that would be returned. So hello plus the name of whatever name is sent in when the function is called. But again, we'll talk more about functions. Data structures in general, they facilitate efficient data storage and manipulation. So there's a lot you can do with data structures. And we'll get more into this when we talk about lists, we talk about tuples, which are almost basically the same thing. We'll talk about dictionaries, we'll talk about sets, right? So we'll look at data structures in much more detail and understand the applicability of these different data structures, when to use them, how to use them, and of course, how to get AI to guide us towards generating code for all of these data structures. So just a brief overview of data structures. When we talk about lists versus tuples, we'll talk about those two first, just as an overview. A list basically is like an organized set of data. Okay, so it's like an ordered, organized set of data based on mutable data, mutable sequences. And mutable is just a fancy word for something that is changeable, something that is subject to change, something that can change. Whereas basically tuples are different. They're immutable, and that means the opposite. It means that you can't change the data within that list. Okay, so basically a tuple is like a list, and the only difference is you can't change the data in there. There's good reasons why you would use a list over a tuple, which we'll talk about. A dictionary is kind of different in that sense. You know, contrary to lists, they're actually unordered sets of data. So you have key value pairs in this case for quick data retrieval. So they have their applicability, they have their application. There's necessary times where you will need to use a dictionary over a list or a tuple. And then of course you have sets, which are also unordered sets of data, but it's like a collection of unique elements, and that's why you call it a set. So we'll dive more into each of these data structures in more detail.